You know, we all like to think of ourselves as rational beings, right? That our choices are all based on cold, hard logic. But what if I told you that one of our most ancient, primal emotions is secretly pulling all the strings? In this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on the powerful and often invisible role that fear plays in, well, pretty much everything we do.
So, let's start here. Picture this. You're walking through the woods. It's quiet, and all of a sudden you hear a rustling in the bushes nearby. Your heart starts hammering in your chest. What's your gut tell you to do? Do you go check it out, or do you get out of there, fast?
And that right there, that immediate gut reaction, that's your brain's ancient alarm system kicking into high gear. I mean, for our ancestors, that rustling in the bushes could have been a saber-toothed tiger. Making a split-second decision, fight or flee, was literally the difference between life and death. So at its core, fear is a life-saving tool.
Okay, but here's where things get kind of messy in our modern world. That exact same survival instinct can actually lead to self-sabotage. See, your brain is, at its core, a survival machine, and it will always prefer a predictable threat over an unpredictable one. It would rather you choose the small, known pain of putting something off than face the giant, unknown terror of maybe failing at it.
And this quote from Dr. Charlie Harriet Maitland just nails it. Our brain wants control so badly that it would rather we engineer our own small, predictable failures than get blindsided by a big one we never saw coming. It's basically a survival glitch for the modern age.
All right, so let's bring this down from tigers on the forest to, well, to right now. Let's look at how this survival glitch plays out not with ancient predators, but with the apps on our phone, the things we buy, and all those little choices we make every single day.
Okay, first up, let's talk about something called the negativity bias. Our brains are literally hardwired to notice and remember bad news and negative stuff way more than the good stuff. It's why one piece of criticism can totally wipe out 10 compliments, right? It's our brain's better safe than sorry policy in action.
And think about this in terms of user experience. You could have this amazing app with dozens of incredible features, but if the login screen is a total nightmare, one of those impossible prove you're not a robot tests, that one single negative experience is all it takes for your brain to scream, danger, get out now.
And this leads right into our next big idea, loss aversion. Researchers have found that the psychological pain of losing, say, $10 feels about twice as strong as the pleasure of finding $10. We are fundamentally wired to avoid losing something more than we are to gain something.
And oh boy, do businesses know this. Amazon's lightning deals are a total masterclass in using loss aversion. They tap right into that fear of missing out, FOMO, by throwing a countdown timer at you and a progress bar that says 65% claimed. You're not just thinking about gaining a discount, you're terrified of the pain of losing that deal.
But there's a flip side. What happens when there are too many things to potentially gain? We get totally paralyzed by what's called the fear of better options. The anxiety that we might not pick the absolute perfect choice becomes so huge that in the end, we just choose nothing at all.
Let's look at a real-world example. Compare the pricing plans for Zoom versus GoToMeeting. Zoom has like 15+ options spread across all these different categories and add-ons. It's confusing. Then you look at GoToMeeting, and they have just three clear options. For a lot of people, that simplicity it's a huge relief. It makes the decision so much easier.
All right, so let's scale this up from choosing software to one of the biggest decisions of our entire lives, choosing a career. This is where fear really likes to grab the steering wheel.
Get this, a study found that 10% of recent college graduates changed their major at least twice. And that's not just, being indecisive. For so many, it's a symptom of a much deeper, fear-based paralysis.
And it really just boils down to two massive fears. On one hand, you've got the classic fear of failure, that deep, gut-wrenching anxiety about not being good enough. And on the other hand, you've got the fear of commitment, the absolute terror of choosing one path because it means closing the door on all the others. And what's really interesting is that research has even broken this down into these little archetypes. You've got the demanding, the perfectionists who are terrified of failing. And then you have the cautious, who are so afraid of risk that they can't bring themselves to commit. Each one is just a different flavor of fear calling the shots.
So we know fear is this incredibly powerful internal thing, right? But what happens when other people, like advertisers, figure out how to push our fear buttons on purpose? Let's talk about the mechanics of fear marketing.
There's this legendary copywriter, Eugene Schwartz, who just said it perfectly. The job of marketing isn't to create fear out of thin air. It can't. Its real job is to find a fear that's already living in your mind and then focus it, like a magnifying glass, onto a specific product.
And trust me, there is a step-by-step playbook for how this works. First, they identify a real worry you already have. Then, an ad activates that fear, bringing it right to the front of your mind. Next, their product is presented as the perfect way out. They show you the anxiety of your problem versus the relief of their solution, until finally, buying the product feels way easier than just living with the fear.
And they tap into all sorts of fears we have. The fear of wasting time, the fear of financial emergency, the fear of what other people think. Again, these aren't made-up anxieties. They're real, everyday worries that we all deal with.
Okay, so we've looked at how fear messes with our own brains and how others can use it. The big question now is, how do we fight back? How do we take control of the situation?
How do we stop these ancient survival instincts from running the show in our modern world? You know? How do we finally break that cycle of fear-based procrastination and self-sabotage for good?
All right, here's the game plan. First, you gotta identify the fear. Just give it a name. Then, challenge it. Ask yourself, is this rational? What is the actual worst thing that could happen? Then, make a plan for that worst-case scenario. A lot of the time, just having a plan makes the fear shrink. And the key is to start ridiculously small. Commit to just 2 minutes of whatever it is you're avoiding. That tiny step builds momentum and proves to your brain that you can handle it.
But honestly, out of all of this might be the most important part. The way out of this loop isn't by beating yourself up. That just makes the fear stronger. The real antidote, the way to actually break the cycle, is self-compassion. It's about understanding that your brain is just trying to protect you, even if its methods are a little outdated.
So I'm going to leave you with this one last question to chew on. As you go about your day today, from the tiniest choices to the biggest ones, take a moment and ask yourself, what decisions are my fears making for me?